Hello, Dark Reader, and welcome to the Dark Side of the Library podcast. I'm your host, Katie, and today on this minisode, we are going to be talking about Ursula Vernon, or T. Kingfisher's book, novella, really, What Moves the Dead. Now, just so you're aware, this is actually a retelling of a Poe tale called The House of Usher. I did not know that. Which was kind of silly of me, until I started reading it, and then I was like, wait a minute, okay, I gotta actually read The House of Usher. I'm gonna tell you about T. Kingfisher, or Ursula Vernon, first. I know I did this before, so I actually covered her other book that she released in 2022, Nettle and Bone, not that long ago. That book was actually the reason why I decided to pick this one up so quickly. That was my first introduction to Ursula Vernon's works, and I know she's a prolific and amazing author. She's won a lot of awards. She did the webcomic Digger. She's done Dragon's Breath. There's another book series that I've been told to read a million times over and over again. Saint of Steel is another one that she's really well known for, but she's done a lot of things. Ursula Vernon is her pen name that she uses. It's her actual name. And that's the name she uses for children's books. She decided to use the pseudonym T. Kingfisher for her adult reads because she was so well known in the community for children's books that she didn't want adults to get all mixed up and give their kids creepy adult fiction novels, and then the kid's like, oh my god, what is this? So that's kind of why she's got these two names, but she's, we all know who it is. So let me tell you the summary of What Moves the Dead, and we'll talk more about how I feel about the book. This book was published July 12th of this year. It really wasn't that long ago. This is a novella. This is only 176 pages. It's very, very short. It's an easy afternoon read. So here's the summary. When Alex Easton, a retired soldier, receives word that their childhood friend, Madeline Usher, is dying, they race to the ancestral home of the Ushers in the remote countryside of Ruritania. What they find there is a nightmare of fungal growths and possessed wildlife surrounding a dark, pulsing lake. Madeline sleepwalks and speaks in strange voices at night, and her brother Roderick is consumed with a mysterious malady of nerves. Aided by a redoubtable British mycologist and a baffled American doctor, Alex must unravel the secret of the House of Usher before it consumes them all. Now, I have to be perfectly honest. I have never, until now, read any of Poe's works, and it was really embarrassing. So my only exposure to Poe was obviously he's influenced literature, pop culture, movies, all sorts of stuff. And my only exposure was actually the Simpsons episode with Dot the Raven, and that episode is totally ingrained in my brain for forever. That was my only thing I've ever technically, quote, read. So, and Carrie loves Poe. So I've been exposed to Poe, but not really tried to read any of his stuff until now. So I actually sat down and read The House of Usher. What Poe does is this really amazing thing. So he has the creepy mansion thing down. And all of the mysteries adds to that fear factor of this mansion, of Roderick and Madeline. And there is an author that shows up there, but they are unnamed versus Alex. They are our main protagonist in What Moves the Dead. The House of Usher is a very, very short story. It left me with goosebumps on my arm. It was really creepy. It left me feeling uneasy, and it didn't require that much effort. I'm not sure if that makes any sense. So because it's such a short story, it just was jam-packed full of fear factor, and it didn't have to be really surreal and off-putting in a way. It was enough where it was tapping into my primal fear, and it was still a little mysterious, and it was enough to leave the hair on my arms sticking up. So The House of Usher and What Moves the Dead starts pretty much the same, except for a few other things, which I'll talk about in a second. House of Usher, Roderick has been sick lately, summons his friend, and then Madeline has also been sick. They're the last of the Usher bloodline, and it talks about just, a very brief history of the Ushers. And it's interesting because when the narrator arrives, Roderick and the narrator should be around the same age, but the fact that Roderick looks so aged is really concerning. And then Madeline is even worse. Madeline in the House of Usher is really freaky. And it doesn't take much for you to be like, oh, okay, she's weird, so she can like see things that's not there. She has seizures. So the narrator's trying to get Roderick to not think about death, encourage him to think about the things that he loves so much. But Roderick is just so upset and sad in the House of Usher. As we approach the climax in the House of Usher, it really amplifies. Just my heart started pounding. It was getting really creepy. And I'm not somebody that scares really easily. It was just very strange. So some of the issues that some people might have had with the House of Usher is that it ends in a very ambiguous way. We're not really sure why the House of Usher is the way it is, or why this ends the way it does, or why the characters fall ill in such a weird way. And I think that adds to the strangeness of it all. It adds to why I'm so afraid and feeling anxious about the House of Usher. Maybe the mistake I did make too was after I read the House of Usher, I read What Moves the Dead, and I liked that mystery behind the House of Usher. And when Ursula Vernon decides to kind of explain things, it really minimized how freaky the book was, in my opinion. Now to talk about What Moves the Dead. Again, it starts exactly very similar to The Fall of the House of Usher. Alex is our non-binary character. They end up approaching, right at the beginning, Miss Potter, who is our weird mycologist. And she's actually one of my favorite characters. She's so, I don't know, as a matter of fact, very scientific. One thing that Ursula Vernon does really well is her characters are on point. They are really great. She really thinks about the fact that here's a mycologist. That's how she starts. She thinks, I'm going to make a mycologist. And then we break down what a mycologist of this stature in this period of time, and of, being female too, not being taken seriously in the scientific community. What would these people be like? And that also goes for a non-binary character, Alex Easton, who's a retired soldier. They view absolutely everything as their eyes are fact. They have seen fallen soldiers, fallen men, fallen comrades in battle, and what death does to people. They've seen it with their own eyes. They know what is real and what's not real. So the fact that they are now approaching this weird, freaky mansion, the House of Usher, where there's these crazy mysteries that nobody can explain. They're like, I don't get it because I have seen things and this is still way beyond the shit I've seen. So I really like that our main character, Alex Easton, is basically just a huge skeptic for a reason. Not necessarily pushed around by fear, but it's enough where it's like all of these enigmatic things happening, these strange happenings are affecting Alex Easton, and finally they just break down. And they're like, what is happening? The characters that Ursula Vernon has built is just phenomenal. The mycologist, Miss Potter, my favorite. She's great. She's witty. She's dry. Very British. We also have the American doctor, also great. We get a lot of UK, US bantering going on in the book, and you may or may not appreciate it. I appreciated it. Now, our other characters, our ushers, so Madeline and Roderick, were also great characters. So Madeline, from what Alex Easton remembers, sweet, wonderful woman, she still has that air about her, but she also has this really eerie thing going on, and it's a slow build. The entire book is incredibly atmospheric, and I feel like Madeline Usher is kind of the reason for that, because she's just everything's a little subtle and delicate, especially surrounding her, and that reflects on her fragile state. We also have Roderick, who is supposed to be the same age as Alex, and Alex looks at Roderick and is like, why is he so different now? And it's really the way that Ursula Vernon and Poe, actually, both of them have done a great job conveying and illustrating Roderick's state of mind with their different narrators. So that is just the characters. And I think that is kind of what makes a great story, are these really great characters. Now, the story itself, they're a little different, the stories, because I think that What Moves the Dead feels a little more creepy on a sci-fi level, not necessarily as paranormal, versus Poe feels a lot more supernatural and strange. And it just a streak of that weird science-y element to it, where all of these supernatural things could be happening by the mysteries of science. So What Moves the Dead has a lot of really creepy body horror going on, so if that's not your thing, I wouldn't necessarily pick it up. But it's done really well. So it's not just this gore fest. It's really subtly done, and it all makes sense, and it fits with the story. It's not there just to make you freak out, which I think makes better horror in general. How T. Kingfisher describes specific scenarios, different environments, is on point. It's really, really well done. And What Moves the Dead, I think, wraps the story of the House of Usher really well. If you're somebody that just kind of needs things to end and have a purpose or an explanation, What Moves the Dead is a really good deep dive into the House of Usher with some really special characters that aren't actually in The Fall of the House of Usher by Edgar Allan Poe. If I were to rate this book, I would probably give it about a 4 out of 5. Some of the things that I wasn't a fan of is that there were many times where I felt like it did get a little repetitive. There were literal sentences that were identical to each other, and many times I would read a sentence and I'd be like, wait a minute, and then I'd flip around because I was like, wait, did I skip a chapter? Did I pick this up in the wrong area? Did I flip too many pages? I don't think it was meant to just draw the book out longer. I don't know, maybe it was, but it was a little weird and off-putting. I wasn't ready to give this book a 5 out of 5. I do think a 4 out of 5 is the better rating because I did read The Fall of the House of Usher and What Moves the Dead back to back. And I was really impressed with Edgar Allan Poe's writing style, and maybe it's not fair to compare the two writing styles together, but I kind of did on accident. And the fact that we have two stories, and one just seems to be hyper-explained versus such a simplistic, freaky tale, I was really drawn to that. I don't really need an ending. I think it adds to the air of fear, dread, and horror, and that's something that I think Edgar Allan Poe does really, really well. So it's about a 4 out of 5 for me. It's a great read, super quick, and I actually think it's perfect for the summertime, surprisingly. I thought it would be more of a winter read because haunted houses, you're stuck in the house, but it actually is great because it utilizes the entire environment, not just the inside of the house, so it actually kind of felt like a great spring and summer read to me. So definitely check this one out. Plus, Ursula Vernon / T. Kingfisher is a fantastic author. I am going to be picking up her books from here on out. She's definitely becoming a fast favorite. So check out What Moves the Dead by T. Kingfisher. It's really great. Twisted, fun, gory, but weird, surreal, body horror, psychological, supernatural, science. Fun. Great. If you're looking for other dark reads, go check out some of our other minisodes. We cover all kinds of dark books. And check out our big episodes that are published every Wednesday. We do curate a bunch of horror novels, and I don't know about you, sometimes they are hard to find. So if you're ever looking for something really good, come check those out. Also join us on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. You can also find us on Amazon.com/live/darksideofthelibrary. If you're into the Halloween aesthetic, dark things, etc., not just books, but everything in your life, we do live stream over there. Check out our show notes on our website at darksideofthelibrary.com. These are affiliate links, just be aware. This doesn't have any effect on you, but it does give us a few cents to help with the podcast. Thank you so much for listening to this minisode. Have a creep-tastic week. Stay cool.